Hello, this is Dr. Jeff Kim. I'll be talking about today Korea in the California History Social Science Standards, and we'll see it all throughout the California Content Standards from 7 through 12, as well as also in the C3 framework that prepares students for college, career, and to be ready for civic life as well. There's 4 points that I hope you'll leave with today. It's the idea of Korea being a epicenter of culture and cultural wealth. The Korean story being an amazing story of resilience, which is then intersecting and connecting with the American story, which is also another story of resilience. Hope you'll leave with a great democratic story as the Republic of Korea developed into who she is today, and then also an amazing economic story, one that should be known and studied. So let's go ahead and begin with 7th grade. In 7th grade, in Standard 7.3, you'll find that students are encouraged to analyze geographic, political, economic, religious, and social structures of the civilization of China in the Middle Ages. So they're learning about China during the Tang Dynasty and the spread of Buddhism from China to Korea to Japan. And they're also learning about Confucianism. So this past summer, actually, I had a chance to visit Korea, and some people consider Korea to be because of the Cultural Revolution that happened in China, one of the holders of this kind of history, the best, I guess, resources, artifacts sometimes are found in Korea. So let's go ahead and take a look at this video clip. This one is of the Folk Museum, as you can see from the outside and the inside. Amazing as well.
At the National Folk Museum, and we had a chance to see one of the exhibits. This exhibit really focused on the life cycle of the Korean, right? And how to celebrate different moments. The sound that you're hearing in the background are actually cicadas, I believe. In Korean, it's called memi. And it began with dordanchi at the very beginning when the child is 1 year of age, and then rites of passage as an adolescent, then in today, marriage, the hangap, the 6 years of age, and also the kind of like respect after a person passes through ancestor worship at the very end. So the complete life cycle of Korean society then and also today.
So lots to study in Korea, and a lot of the practice is still continuing on today, as well as Buddhism. In Korea, I believe they have the largest collection of the Tripitaka Buddhist canon in the world. So a lot of artifacts well preserved in Korea. Also, if you look at Standard 7.3, students analyze the geographic, political, economic, religious, social structures of the civilizations of China in the Middle Ages. And so if they're learning about discoveries like tea and paper and woodblock printing and compass and gunpowder, perhaps there could be an opportunity to also talk about achievements in Korea as well. And so there's some amazing places here, including the National Museum, and also folks like King Sejong and the development of Hangul, which I think is an amazing story of literacy.
In the Hangul Museum, one thing that I thought about was King Sejong and his idea to create an alphabet system so that all the people could be literate, that a wise person can learn the alphabet in 1 day, and if there was somebody not as wise, they can learn it in 10 days. So the idea of everybody being illiterate and creating a system which was easy to learn. And this reminded me of the idea of like power and privilege, because that's oftentimes connected to literacy, learning, and scholarship. So who gets to learn, who gets to read, right? And so in some places it was made to be very difficult. So even if we compare it to like a neighboring country like China, you'd have to like 5,000 characters in order to be able to like read even a newspaper. So this idea of having a system that even a common person would be able to read and write really shows like a desire to serve the people, to help the people, which is one reason I think King Sejong is very much revered in Korea.
And so definitely a worthwhile topic to cover. King Sejong, the development of Hangul, the idea of literacy as a major achievement. Of course, connected with that literacy is the first movable type print. And so oftentimes Gutenberg is studied as the first person who created the movable type print, but it actually was created in Korea with the Hanga, and something that you can also see in the Hanga Museum as well. You could also connect to civic engagement. So this idea of students wanting to learn different world languages for their personal benefit, to connect to the community here and also globally. The C3 framework, to be college, career, and life ready, that goes beyond just the classroom to and academic learning, to connecting with the world and understanding what's happening around the world and being able to communicate with the world as well. So in 8th grade U.S. history, I think I will talk a little bit about some of the common points in history, like the idea that Korea also had a declaration of independence because they were also a colonized nation. So there's some information connections that are there, in addition to a civil war, a North and a South. So I think there's a lot of points to definitely resonate with. And in addition to that, Content Standard 8.12 and point 7 says, identify new sources of large-scale immigration and contributions of immigrants to the building of cities and economy. Explain the ways in which new social economic patterns encouraged assimilation of newcomers into mainstream amidst growing cultural diversity, and discuss the wave of nativism. So once again, all these content standards are coming directly from the California Content Standards. I'm reading there word for word. And oftentimes I think as 8th grade teacher, it's hard to actually get to hear sometimes, to be honest. But I think this is a very important part of our story. E pluribus unum, from many one. And the Korean Americans are one of those parts of this story.
The Korean American story is a great American story.
Hello, today we're going to be reading Korean Americans, A Concise History by Edward T. Chang and Carol K. Park. I recommend this close to 100-page book that talks about Korean American history, and it's told so well and concisely. I'll just be reading the introduction today. It's about 9 pages or less, and so it will provide an overview for the book, and I think a great way to step into Korean American history. So if I were to ask you, could you name one? So I definitely recommend that book if you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, Korean Americans, A Concise History. And in this video, I just read the 9-page introduction of this 100-page book that does a nice job sharing the Korean American story, but also its connection to the United States as well. The 10th grade class, we have modern world history. And so Standard 10.4 says students analyze the patterns of global change in the era of new imperialism in at least 2 of the following regions: Africa, Southeast Asia, China, India, Latin America, and the Philippines. It'd be great to see it like really specific, to see Korea in there, as Korea is such an influential nation in the world today. I think it's important for us to know these connections. And then also, if you look at 10.6, analyze the aims and negotiating roles of world leaders and terms and influence of the Treaty of Versailles and Woodrow Wilson's 14 points, and the causes and effects of the United States rejection of the League of Nations on world politics. So this first video clip actually shares a little bit about, after being colonized, the people of Korea pushing back against imperialism and the colonization that they were experiencing. And what's really great about this story is you got stories that include women, including Yu Guan-sun, who is a teenage girl.
The Korean independence movement was a series of peaceful protests in Korea to win Korean independence from colonial Japanese rule. While it ultimately was not able to achieve this goal, it was able to bring nationwide attention to the plight of its people, influencing the rise of anti-imperialist movements and resistance in China, the Philippines, and Egypt. Despite living in a society dominated by social and gender discrimination, women of all ages and walks of life were able to rise to the forefront of the movement, fanning the flames of independence and marching with Korean pride. The most extraordinary feature of the uprising of the Korean people.
Hello, and today we're going to talk about the Korean independence movement. The question that we're going to be discussing is, How was Korean independence movement impacted by President Wilson's 14 points? Here's some additional questions to think about as we talk about this topic for today. How does the timeline for Korea's annexation by Japan and subsequent independence movement correspond to that of World War I and World War II?
So there's some lesson plans that are completely built out in the Korean American Model Ethnic Studies curriculum on independence, because that's a part of understanding the Korean American story. I have a saying in my class: in order for the tree to grow tall, you have to know your roots. And the Korean American story is connected to the American story, which is connected also to the Korean story and the fight for independence. And the fight for independence that happened inside Korea, but also outside of Korea as well, including Tosan, Changho, and Pachapa Camp. So a lot of these lessons, like, we might not have like specific details on this. So it's really great that on the KSEF website and the CAS website, you can find some detailed lesson plans along with teacher lesson plans, teacher support materials, student support materials, all uploaded so that these lessons are ready to go if you want to integrate them to meet some of these standards. Here's another 10th grade standard for modern world history, and this standard 10.9 looks at students analyze the international development in the post-World War II. This standard focuses on World War II decolonization and the Cold War, offering opportunities to examine Korea's division into North and the South, the Korean War, and their global implications. Like, so interesting, this topic, because I think if you look everywhere around the world, there's no place that's more different than North and South Korea, but they weren't always like that. They were very similar. So it's a very interesting case study and a great story, I would say, of what democracy looks like, a great democracy story, because one became communist and the other democratic. Here's actually a video clip that I took in Paju, an area in South Korea where you can actually look at an observatory, from an observatory, and look into North Korea.
If there's a scar in the land of Korea, there's a great one. And I would call that the 38th parallel, the DMZ, that divided a country that had been together for 1,000 years and then was divided into North and South Korea, splitting families. And now today, the different quality of life between North Korea and South Korea is so stark. We're not able to go to North Korea, but we're going to get close. Today we're going to the DMZ, the demilitarized zone. They call that because in that area there's no military action happening in that place officially, but there are soldiers on both sides. In fact, this border that we're headed towards, the 38th parallel, is the most fortified border in the world, with a 1 million-man army on one side and hundreds of thousands of soldiers on the other side with guns pointed at one another. And so we're going to this place, we're going to the Odasan Observatory. We'll be able to, from a distance, safely see this place, but also at the same time be reminded of perhaps a longing that so many people have of one day being able to see their family, or one day.
All right, and so what a powerful, powerful story of democracy, and then somewhat of an unfinished story too in some ways, maybe because there's some hopes on many people have that perhaps it doesn't have to be that way. And then also I feel Korea has done a beautiful job in just remembering this story, and so they also have a museum here where they do not forget their stories and remember the story of the Korean War, and that's also another place that I think has valuable resources that could benefit educators. Then also in 10th grade modern world history, students in 10.11 analyze the integration of countries into the world economy and the information, technological, and communication revolutions. So really the Hallyu movement in Korea also can be referred to as the miracle on the Han. And then even today, if I were to go to a city close to my house, there'd be a lot of influence of Korea here in Southern California.
Hello, this is Dr. Jeff Kim, and we are in like a little soul in SoCal, the Buena Park source. It's the
And this isn't the biggest place. K-Town has so much more, but even in these other cities, there's a lot of influence, of the Hallyu movement moving outside of Korea, and not just food or this mall, but also the K beauty products, K culture, K food.
Hello, this is Dr. Jeff Kim, and today I started a K-pop club at school, at our middle school. So when I say K-pop, I'm really talking about K-culture. So could include K-beauty, K-food. And so if you're interested in starting a
And so I was even able to start a K club at my school. Kind of can talk about K-pop, but there's other stuff definitely that I think we're going to have a lot of fun with too, like K-beauty and K-food as well. Now moving to 11th grade, from 10th to 11th grade. 11th grade focuses on U.S. history. And so if we take a look at 11.2, students analyze the relationship among the rise of industrialization, large-scale rural to urban migration, and massive immigration from Southern and Eastern Europe. So there's a lot of focus on migration oftentimes in Europe, but not as much conversation about migration from Asia. But I think that's a very worthwhile topic of what did happen and what didn't happen. I think there's a lot of opportunity to discuss, but definitely one person that I think you would want to look at is Tosan An Chang-ho, because this person intersects with both Korean American history as well as Korean history, starting the first Korean American community here at Pachapa Camp Riverside, but at the same time being such an influential leader for the development and the democracy of Korea.
Hello, this is Dr. Jeff Kim, and today I'm going to share about the Tosan An Chang-ho lesson, which is one of the pioneers of Korean Americans in the United States of America. Once again, I'm going to be referring to the KSEF website, the Korean American Studies Education Foundation website, going to lesson 2 here. And when I go to lesson 2, here is a lesson on the first Koreatown and the legacy of Tosan An Chang-ho. And so you can see the standards and so forth below, but in addition to that, PowerPoints and lesson ideas as well.
So you can see how all the lessons are curated if you want to teach a lesson like this. In this case, it's going to talk about the citrus industry and the intersection with other groups. Also, I had a chance to go to Riverside, and so there's a memorial there, and I thought I'd share a little bit about that as well.
So there's a time capsule here to be opened on August 11, 2051. I wonder what's in here. Hello, this is Dr. Jeff Kim, and I'm at the Tosan An Chang-ho Memorial out here in Riverside. I kind of like how the Tosan An Chang-ho Memorial kind of has like this rotunda that's here, because opportunity to just look around, walk around, and kind of just reflect on what it must have been like to be a part of that first Korean American community out here in Riverside.
And then finally, I worked with a friend and his group called Educado, and he helped to create this virtual AI chatbot where Tosan An Chang-ho was kind of like using artificial intelligence to power a virtual Tosan An Chang-ho. So maybe in the future we could have more of these kinds of things where it might be difficult to learn about certain people, but experts can help to provide content for these virtual AIs, and then it's a lot easier then to, I think, if you were an educator, just to go into these spaces with your students and have conversations. Here's an example.
Welcome. Today we're going to meet Tosan An Chang-ho, or at least a chatbot AI of Tosan An Chang-ho. Let's see how close this can be to Tosan An Chang-ho. I reached out to my friend Jay Kim, who works with Educado, and they created this custom Tosan An Chang-ho. And if this works, it'd be kind of cool to meet virtual folks all across history, and maybe even as a part of our virtual museum as well. So it looks like, hey, I'm Tosan An Chang-ho. Looks like avocado though. And I'm a tutor for the Educado team's class. Whether you really understand a certain topic or want to study together before your next step, I'm here to help. So let's go ahead and maybe go ahead and begin with one of their pre-selected questions. Maybe who are you and what did you do? And it looks like it typed that prompt into this area where you could just type in the prompt, and I'm going to push that send button. And as I push that send button, you can see that wheel turning, and it's saying, I'm An Chang-ho, also known as Tosan, a prominent Korean politician, independence activist, and leader
of the Korean American immigrant community in the United States. I played a key role in advocating for Korean independence and building a democratic society through education, economics, and military strategies. Right. And so it continues on in U.S. history to Standard 11.9.3. This standard discusses U.S. involvement in Asia during the Cold War, where the Korean War is a central topic. Teachers can highlight its effects on U.S.-Korea relations and its broader impacts on geopolitics. So what happened in the history is still impacting us today. The United States celebrates over 120 years of migration from Korea to the United States, and then also 70 years of alliance between the United States and Korea as well, and considers the Republic of Korea to be a very, very close ally.
I actually wanted to see the Korean War Memorial last time I came to Washington, D.C., when I was invited by President Biden for the state arrival ceremony. But
so beautiful and powerful, serene memorial about not forgetting the heavy cost that was paid, and to remember the sacrifice of all our soldiers, 36,000, over 36,000, who paid the ultimate price for this important work. And if you look at North and South Korea today, we can see that because of that, there's such a great difference between these two spaces, which is why I think this is so worth studying, because we saw the difference that was made. Lastly, in 12th grade, students study economics and government, and so it could be a good opportunity to incorporate South Korea's economic growth, because very few countries in the world, and I don't know if there's another one that has a story quite like this, where they were like the poorest country in the world, like in 1953, and then a couple generations later, top 10 GDP. There's just not too many stories like that. A lot of countries want that. They want that economic growth, but have not been able to turn it around like that. So not that there wasn't a cost, but what are the lessons to be learned? Once again, that's just a little bit. There's more that's in the Korean American Model Ethnic Studies curriculum that could be incorporated, and if teachers curious, into the U.S. history and world history. And then what I always encourage is to encourage like connections and intersections. For example, like when you're teaching about the Declaration of Independence or the Civil War, or that there was North and South in the United States, just I think seeing how that also plays out, because that is the prior knowledge of many 7th and 8th graders who learn this. Then when they go on to 10th and 11th and they're studying about different places like Korea, it's really an opportunity to empathize and understand and make a connection to themselves as well. So it's very powerful in that way. So I hope today you're leaving with these 4 things that I mentioned. Korea as a place of great cultural wealth, worth looking at, worth studying at. Also, it's a story of resilience, of a colonized people who pushed back, like America also pushed back to become their own country. So it becomes a great story of democracy as well. And then another great story that it has is a great economic story as well. So I think Korea in the California History Social Science Content Series is definitely worth taking a close look at and integrating as appropriate.